Hi, my name is Kaden, and today I'm going to be explaining the program that I created for my project. So, the point of my program was to create a personality quiz that tells users what animal they should get as a pet based on their personality. The program is going to ask the user a series of 6 to 7 questions. I believe mine has 7. Asking them about their preferences and habits and hobbies, and based on their input and their response, the program will use conditionals to assign points to different animals. In my case, the different animals are dog, cat, and fish. And at the end of the quiz, the user will see which animal they are most compatible with. So, in my program, if we do a test run, you're prompted to pick a number 1 through 3. I created a loop to make sure that the user only enters valid answers, and if they answer anything other than 1, 2, or 3, the program will check the input and the loop sends them back to the same question until they can give a valid response. So for example, if I entered 4, the code will tell me or output invalid answer choice, please enter 1, 2, or 3. And then when I enter 3, they will prompt the user to the next question and continue. If I enter 5, I get an output that says invalid answer choice, please enter 1, 2, or 3. You can see how I did this loop on line 24. I added if-else statements, and if the user inputs anything other than 1, 2, or 3, they will get an output of invalid answer choice, please enter 1, 2, or 3. You can see this on line 24. And then sin, which is user input choice. So then that pretty much just means that it will ask the user to input a valid choice. Once a valid answer is given, I used if-else statements to give points, to assign the points to the pets, and this way the program updates the scores based on what the user chooses. Each question works like this, so the points will accumulate as the users answer more questions. You can see how I did this on lines 13 through 20 or 21. It says, if choice equals 1, dog score plus semicolon. So what this means is if the user inputs 1 for question number 1, then the dog score will get 1 point. Otherwise, if the user inputs 2 for question 1, then the cat score will have 1 point. And if the user inputs 3 for question 1, then the fish will have a point. And if they enter any other number, then the code will prompt the user to input a valid answer. To develop this program, I followed several steps. First, I planned out the types of pets that I wanted to include, and the 3 pets that I ended up choosing were dog, cat, and fish. I wanted to include the questions as a reflection of the person's lifestyle accurately, so I thought about the different questions that I would ask, and I put it on a piece of paper, and then I adjusted some questions, and what you see in the code was the outcome of the questions that I decided to choose. Next, I coded the questions and stored the user's input in variables. I used if-else statements to update the scores depending on the answers. For example, if the user said they liked outdoor activities, the program would add points to dogs. If the user said that they liked more inside activities, they would either get a point to a cat or fish. I also added a default case using else to handle unexpected input, which ensures the program doesn't crash if someone types in anything else other than 1, 2, or 3. That's why I created that loop, and I explained that earlier, where it redirects the user to input a valid answer. At the end, I wrote a code that compared all the PET scores and printed the recommendation for the user. You can see this on lines 114 through 127. I tested it several times after I wrote it to make sure that the scores were accurate and the program ran smoothly. One of the most complex conditional statements in my program would be when I have to add points to each question depending on what the user inputs. But here's how I did it. The program checks the user's answer, and if the user inputs 1, then a point will be assigned to dog. If the user inputs 2, a point will be assigned to cat, and if the user inputs 3, a point will be assigned to fish. This ensures that the program runs smoothly even if the user types something unexpected. Throughout this project, I learned several important lessons. I improved my understanding of programming logic, especially how conditionals control the flow of a program. I was able to understand else-if statements and how to properly create loops without making the program crash. And I also gained experience in handling user input, ensuring the program and ensuring the program can deal with unexpected responses. Throughout this project, I learned several important lessons. I improved my understanding of programming logic, especially how conditionals control the flow of a program. I was able to understand else-if statements and how to properly create loops without making the program crash. Overall, this project helped me to strengthen my programming skills while also allowing me to be creative, and I learned several things. I also added notes along the way in the beginning, and I learned how to use if-else statements and learned how to loop the code so that the code doesn't crash if it encounters any unexpected inputs. And it was a lot of trial and error. So lastly, I'm just going to run the code normally and get an answer.